Morning, guys. Mark Ferrasci, Protect Dog Trainer. Heading into town with the dogs to go to the park. Excuse me real quick. Let me get that shut. Yes, okay. Reduce our noise factor a little bit. So what I wanted to talk to you about this morning as I'm heading into town, my little Yack Session, was a little bit more on the fear being, right? What I call the fear being, the fear response, all that good stuff. But this one, we're going to go a little bit deeper into trauma, right? What happens when trauma occurs in the animal? And this happens to a lot of different people. They might be in a dog park and they get pounced on by another dog, and the age bracket matters. So in other words, when the dog is younger, it'll have more of a tendency to be seared into the brain. Think of it like a brand. The brand is on a hot fire and you hit it up against a cow and it leaves that scarring on the animal that leaves the brand, right? Well, it's the same thing with the brain. When it gets traumatized, it has this happen to it, and it needs to have help working its way through it and recovering the animal, especially if the dog's a younger dog. And this happens in a lot of different ways. Dog parks, dogs are getting in fights. All of a sudden, you're going down the road, you got a yard that the dog's constantly going off on you, and all of a sudden the gate pops loose, and here comes this dog, boom, pounces on your dog. Or the dog's loose in the neighborhood and comes up behind your dog. Pit bulls that have a common tendency to do this, and all of a sudden be up on your dog, and boom, here's a fight, right? And so it's the instant fear and the instant explosion of trauma that is seared into the brain of the animal, right? It happens with us too. You get in a plane crash and you find out that fear goes to your heart and you live and get out of it. What do you feel like afterwards? You don't feel like going on a plane. That's going to stay with you a long time until you work your way through that imprint and you being branded with a mass amount of fear that comes at you all of a sudden at once, right? Usually it's kind of a surprise type of thing, startle. You're flying along fine, all of a sudden the plane starts going down, it's in flame, and okay, so, and you feel that's gonna be branded in your mind, right? So that's what we're talking about, trying to recover the dog. We've got to try to recover the dog. And now the longer that this is there and that you don't recover it and start working the animal through it, the more it's gonna set and it's going to be a lot harder to get out of the dog, right? So with Benoît as an example, he's a 7-month-old dog, probably 3-4 months old when this happened to him. He was traumatized, and then the owner's not knowing what they're doing so much. They're out walking the dog, and the dog goes off and starts to get reactive and be stupid in that respect, and then they don't know how to handle it, right? So the first thing that you want to do is with puppies. I like to refer to puppies because it's a great example. When I get a puppy, I get a puppy at 8 weeks of age, generally, right? I pick up a dog at 8 weeks of age, I take him home, and my goal is to take the dog through people, places, things, and an environment, and do what we call shaking the dog out, what I call shaking the dog out, right? It comes from the horse industry. They call it shaking the colt out, shaking the horse out, which means a horse is an animal with a lot more fear tendencies. They get startled, they jump. That's their natural nature, and it's just part of what you've got to deal with dealing with a horse. Same thing. The younger they are, the more skittish they are, the more fearful they are. Now, God gives the animal a lot of fear when they're young because all they can't fight, all they can do is basically run and hide, right? So dogs, you'll see them going up underneath the table, going on. That's what they're doing when they're trying to escape something that they're fearful of, right? And they're a lot more prone, a lot more fears in puppies. We always have to work puppies through it. It's part of what I call shaking out the animal. You're going out, for me, I go out in public and I'm knocking on things and I'm dropping bowls and I'm doing all kinds of things to work the dog through it in the right manner. And it's an art, it's a skill that's acquired with a lot of years doing it, but I do it with all my puppies. I work them through environment, people, places, things, and I'm building the dog's confidence and agility. If I had bottle pits, you'll see a lot of the working dog kids out there letting the dogs jump into pools with a bunch of plastic bottles or an actual pit. There's one trainer in LA that's got a nice pit the dog runs all the way through. So it's, you know, it's about a foot or two high of nothing but bottles. He's got to basically swim his way through those bottles. Why do we do that? Noise desensitization. That after a while the dog doesn't care about any noises and can handle that type of stressor. You see in PSA they've got a screen, can screen that they've got, and they're getting the dog and they're working the dog in the bite work at the same time they've got this can screen. That's minor stressors we're putting on the dog to basically desensitize them to a point where they become strong and that doesn't matter to them anymore. And so you'll see it in a lot of sports. The stick, the clatter stick that's in wing sport makes a lot of noise. Same thing. You're doing head strikes over the dog so that if anybody tried to hit your dog in the situation, the dog wouldn't shy away and run away from that because he's been acclimated to it. He's been desensitized to it. It's just part of his life, and the bite work and all that work is done. We're building strength. That's our main objective, to build strength in the animal. So we do it with a lot of desensitization like that. We do all kinds of little tricks in regards to that, but we also people, places, thing. We do a lot of agility for confidence building, jumping up on things, and you'll see me when I start working Benoît, which I've got in the truck right now. We're going to start putting a muzzle on him and using the park to start doing our thing. We'll talk about that in the next clip because I'm going to do that right now at the park. But we're going to be doing a lot of agility, which is confidence building, and then setting anchors. And an anchor is something the dog gets so used to with pattern and routine that it becomes very secure in that. And that gives the dog a warm, fuzzy feeling that I can use because the dog is enamored to it. He gets high on it because the pattern and routine sets in. You go out and he knows what, like this morning when I loaded him into the truck, he loaded pretty well, right? And I tested putting the muzzle on him because I'm going to need the muzzle out in public. So he did pretty good. And then every morning I go out, you're going to go bye-bye, and they're going to get high. Oh, we got to get to go to the park, right? And now he's jumping into the kennel, he's jumping into the box real easy, and it becomes easier and easier with a lot more excitement and exuberance from the dog because of pattern and routine setting in, right? So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take my table, my bowls, and all the things that I've already set up at home that he's familiar with, and I'm going to take him to the park. That's the anchor, right? That table, that bowl, things that he's familiar with that'll make him feel warm and fuzzy because this is something he's already used to, right? And then we'll go right into the same patterns at the park, different place, and then we'll create the park going there all the time to being the next place that he gets to go. He'll get secure in that, and then as soon as he's secure in that, I feel comfortable with it, I'll start taking him out in public in a real sense and going to Home Depot and other locations that I can get the dog worked in the environment, right? It's real important to be able to build a dog through all this, so you're going to have a mental midget and you're going to have a fear biter and all kinds of things that occur from a dog that's not confident. We've talked about that a lot. Where does this reactivity come from? In a general sense, most of the time it comes from insecurity and fear, right? So that's definitely this dog's situation. So just keep it in mind. If you ever get a dog, you need to put a lot of work into that dog from anywhere from 8 weeks of old when you get him till 6 months of age, right? And even then, you're still working the dog. But my point is that the critical development period happens from about 8, well, even younger than that, but it's 8 weeks old when you get him home. That's the first exposure he's got to you, and now it's your job to work him through all these things. So you're going 8 weeks, and I work the dog until he's about 6 months of age, and a lot of things to make sure that I'm working him through all this. And then we still